Hey neighbors, welcome to the Evergreen Local Tri-Cities edition, your weekly roundup of the wild, the weird, the urgent, and the inspiring right here in Benton and Franklin counties. This week is absolutely packed with things that happen around the Bi-County area, the Tri-Cities this last week or so. So let's hit the headlines and get into the story behind the story. So first and foremost, you can no longer attend WebEx for any court proceedings that you may have to attend. Yes, I'm dead serious about that. You can no longer attend court via WebEx right now, and let me tell you why. Because it was hijacked with hate content and porn. Yes, you really can't make this stuff up. So what happened? Back on April 9th, the story is reported here. A criminal court docket in the Benton County Superior Court was disrupted around 9 a.m. Wednesday. So this is about a week ago of the release date. It's coming out Wednesday, April 16th. So this is news going back from about the 9th through today, the 15th. So anyways, the court docket was disrupted around 9 a.m. So right as it's getting started, individuals logged into the public WebEx court feed, blasting porn, siren-filled music, profanity-laced speech, and white supremacist symbols and footage, including a KKK rally and swastikas. A message also falsely claimed the system was hacked by the CCP, which is the Chinese Communist Party. I don't know why they want to hack Benton County Superior Court, but all court proceedings must be attended in further notice from now on. Going forward in the short term, we'll see kind of what this shakes out. The court administrators confirmed this was not a cyber attack, but misuse by public participants. You can attend those Superior Court things public. They're open to the public. Anyone can really attend and whatnot and be present for those. So it's just something to keep in mind there. It is important to clarify that this incident does not constitute a cybersecurity hack. So the IT department is working with court officials to address the misuse and improve safeguards. District court proceedings separate from the Superior Court were not impacted. There's no timeline given for when this access will be restored. This is kind of Zoom bombing or platform hijacking has been reported in other courts and government meetings around the United States since the pandemic era shift to remote access. So you only can have so much of a nice thing before it gets taken away from everyone if you ruin it, and someone ruined it. And so, it raises a question: should remote court access be more strictly controlled or ended altogether? I think it's really convenient for a lot of people to be able to attend. Maybe they don't have rides, maybe they don't have transportation, maybe they're not able to get there, maybe they don't have funds, maybe it's not safe for them to go, or whatever it may be, to be there in person in court. So there are a lot of really good benefits of it, but all it takes is one person to ruin it for everybody. And so I feel for those who really relied on that service that can't do it right now, that had upcoming hearings. So our next one is Finley. The budget crisis in Finley School District may force Finley to move to 4-day weeks. We covered this last time, but I want to continue to cover it just to remind those, if you are in Finley and you're listening to this and you hear this, please go out and vote on the levy. Either or, if you support it or don't support it. This budget shortfall of $1 million, even if the levy passes, the proposed Monday through Thursday schedule will extend hours. Parents are actually largely supportive, but concerns around food security and childcare remain. So the February levy failed. So let's just actually go back a little bit here, actually. So this is a small rural district east of Kennewick. It is likely to adopt a 4-day school week starting in fall 2025. So it's a very small rural district right outside of the main Tri-Cities area. We kind of consider it part of the Tri-Cities still, since it's really close to Kennewick there. If you know Finley, it's really small and it's very rural. Rural districts are always hit hardest by these levies. And by property tax hikes and all these other things that the lawmakers in Olympia tried to hit. So the change is being pursued to offset a $1 million budget shortfall, even if a new $3.54 million levy on April 22nd ballot is approved. The February levy failed, costing the district essential local funding. Even if the April levy passes, Finley must still cut $1 million. If it fails again, they'll face a $2 million deficit, resulting in elimination of all sports programs throughout the school district and layoffs of more than 24 teachers and support staff. So what would this look like in reality? Well, students would attend Monday through Thursday, 3-day weekend. Instructional time would be extended by 1 hour to meet state's 1,027-hour requirement. There would be no classes on Fridays, but teachers would still work that day for planning and professional development. Let's see, class schedule in elementary would go from 8:05 to 3:15, and middle school and high school would go from 7:45 to 3:20. Cost savings here: subs would only cost $40,000, other salaries $200,000, food services $81,000, total utilities $19,000. Potential savings of $340,000 of these initial cost saving measures, not including sports and all the things that come along with those as well, and keeping those up and running. The parents and reaction of the district: the superintendent, Brian Long, says the feedback at 3 public meetings has been extremely positive. Residents see academic benefits. They like the longer class periods and higher attendance. Community members like Rory Bush support the change, citing local pride and flexibility for family schedules. Potential concerns, of course, childcare burden on working families, no school meals for free reduced lunch students 1 day a week, questions about extracurricular access, and Friday supervision. So what's going to happen on Fridays? We don't know. It's one of those things that's going to have to be, kind of figured out as you get there, and you may be on your. It's going to be ultimately on your own for figuring that out. Uh, so the bigger picture, the OSPI office must approve Finley's request under the Safety Economy and Efficiency Waiver, limited to 30 small districts statewide. 18 other districts already in Washington use a 4-day week. Finley has 840 full-time students across the 3 schools. Um, so this is very interesting, kind of where this is going here. It's trending towards that way of being a 4-day work week, no extracurriculars, no sport, at least, and then this reimagined schedule and whatnot for Finley, and the flexibility. So, of course, whether you're for it or against it, go and vote on the levy as well, just to kind of see what happens next. Definitely, will be continuing to follow this story as we go into next week as well. Let's see, Pasco man was arrested on child sex trafficking case. So Jonathan Atkins faces 11 federal charges on this. He's 34, originally from Alabama, and recently living in Pasco, a U.S. citizen not connected to immigration enforcement, as some social media posts claimed. Former resident of Honduras, now indicted in Eastern Washington District Court. They arrested him at a multifamily property he owned at 73 Elm Avenue, Pasco. Multiple federal and local agents stormed the building around 10 a.m. Thursday, April 8th. 11 total charges filed, including sex trafficking of children, production and attempted production of child porn, online enticement of a minor, and forced labor. So these crimes carry a maximum penalty of life in prison. So that's what I'm talking about. I hope he gets life in prison for these crimes, because these are terrible crimes. Homeland Security is involved in this, ICAC Task Force, Benton County Sheriff, Pasco, Richland, Kennewick Police Department, ATF and DEO also assisted in this takedown here. So the next legal steps in all this is Atkins is in custody in the Benton County Jail. Federal court appearance scheduled for Thursday, April 10th. Prosecutors Laurel Holland and Stephanie Van Martyr. Further case details, including victim impact and scope, expected at court appearance. So we'll see exactly how this shakes out. I'm really hoping that he gets his life. I think life is really the only acceptable response for these, because you're changing these children's lives forever. Your life should also be drastically altered. Matthew Murphy, the acting special agent in charge of the HSI Seattle, he did have a quote on this. Human trafficking is a heinous crime that preys on the most vulnerable members of our community. The most effective way to dismantle these crimes, a criminal network, is through strong partnership. And that's exactly what we saw here. So hats off to these agencies that collaborated. There's a lot of collaboration here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different agencies collaborated here to take down this one man on these child sex trafficking crimes. So hats off to you guys. Very, very good. Let's see. Last top headline here is the LIHEAP cuts leave thousands at risk in Washington. So what the heck is it? The LIHEAP layoffs. Well, it's the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which is about $4.1 billion, which helped low-income families afford utility bills. The cuts were part of a larger federal restructuring effort that laid off 10,000 employees at the Department of Health and Human Services. What this organization does is it pays energy bills, repairs furnaces, provides air conditioners. In Washington last year, they helped over 223,000 residents in the state, prevented 15,800 power shutoffs, and restored power to nearly 2,800 homes throughout their effort. Washington was awarded $56.3 million in funds for fiscal year 2025. 90% have already been delivered, 50.7 million. The final 10% has not yet arrived and may not without program staff in place. Agencies like HopeLink, Multi-Service Center depend on these funds. Without that 10%, up to 900 South King County households could miss out on utility assistance, and who knows how many more impact on residents around the state that do rely on these funds for, that utility assistance. Some reactions to this, of course, are saying it's a gut punch, saying it's devastating, and, they fear for more cuts coming. So state officials are working with HHS to secure the remaining funds. We'll see what happens here. I would imagine this is part of the Doge effort. You never want to see a family go without power. So we'll see what the final 5.6 million in the final installment isn't delivered, what happens next. And of course, advocates fear that the entire safety net could unravel. And that, unfortunately, this is coming from someone that was on government assistance programs growing up, and knowing very well about those and how important they are to a family, especially to a grandmother trying to raise her grandson. This sucks, but there's also a thing called the nanny state. I can also speak after having family members who do live off the system as well, that don't need to be living off the system, that are more than capable of going out there and making a living for themselves. And there are a lot of those people, and there's also a lot of the other ones that can't make a living for themselves, that may be disabled in some way, shape, or form, and can't do these things for themselves to keep their lights on, and they need this assistance to keep living. But for those that are able, that are just kind of taking from the system, that's why we have these cuts. You're just taking from the system, and you're not giving back to it. So the more we take without giving, negative correlation there, negative imbalance there. You got to give as much as you take, and if you're taking more than what you're giving, that's going to create that imbalance there and ruin it for a lot of good people. Let's see, a couple controversies of the week here. Uh, just really good, interesting stuff. A couple crashes here. So Jeremy Santo had a blood alcohol level of 0.33, 4 times the legal limit. So this is a fatal DUI crash involving a renowned Tri-Cities lawmaker or winemaker, not lawmaker, winemaker. This happened back on February 11th. He was over 4 times the legal limit. For reference, point 0.4 is considered potentially fatal. He was at 0.333. So he was 4 times the legal limit of what is allowed. A point 0.4 is considered fatal. So he was right on the precipice of this at the time. So this happened around 2 a.m., Highway 395. He drove in the southbound lanes in a 2022 Hyundai Tucson. The involved trooper was Anselmo Sanchez, a state patrol trooper attempted to stop Santo. It was a head-on crash. Sanchez had minor injuries, but Santo was seriously injured. As Santo was hospitalized at uh, Trios Hospital, Southridge. He developed pneumonia after struggle for 3 weeks. He passed away following complications from injuries and illness. Kennewick Police led the investigation since a Washington State trooper was involved. Toxicology confirmed the extreme intoxication, and Merkel, the KPD commander, did say that the blood alcohol contents were life-threatening for that. So about Santo, who has since passed away, he was a celebrated winemaker in the industry. He worked with top labels such as Chateau Saint Michel, Ryan Patrick, Mercer Estate, and J. Bookwalter. He started as a lab tech in 2003, became a winemaker later on in life. He was last employed as a sales rep in winemaking and beverage supplies. He's from Prosser. He's a WSU biology grad, father to a daughter and a son, remembered as a universally loved in the wine community. But these are the tragic accidents of what happens when you drink and drive. This is in no way sponsored by any agency or any affiliation with any program that fights against drunk driving. But please, if you're intoxicated, please hand your keys over. Please stay where you're at. Don't get on the road, especially if a cop's trying to pull you over, cooperate. So that you can be saved essentially, so no one gets hurt, and so you don't lose your life and affect those of your loved ones as well. So just to remember there, and then of course a little bit more about that fatal crash of the off-duty trooper allegedly drunk in the fatal crash. I think I covered that already last week, so I'm not going to hit that again. Let's see. CBC local college here is set to receive 83 million in capital budget. So this is to replacement of the Performing Arts Center. 54 million of that is going to that. It should be completed by the fall of 2029. It's going to have an updated stage, seating, modern acoustics and lighting, equipment, and architectural upgrades. And, I've kind of found myself at a funny spot with drama and things like that. I think it's good. I think it's a good extracurricular. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's good, but I fear that a lot of kids get so sucked into these ideas of acting that their whole life becomes an act. And they're always acting. It's hard for them to find the balance. So there's something there, but I think this is really cool. It'll be a really cool design. It'll be a beautiful center, I'm sure. Bigger capacity, just really good overall. And let's see, they're also getting an 18 million student housing facility. This construction is supposed to start this summer. It should be open by fall 2026, so about 1 year. 160 beds, kitchens, bathrooms, living area, study rooms, lounge, laundry, bike storage, 54,000 square feet total. 2 more residential buildings are planned along with this as well. And then roof repairs and replacement, about $10 million. Ultimately, the Senate Bill 5195 passed the Senate unanimously. This is awaiting approval from Governor Ferguson. The final confirmation likely before April 27th as well. So this is good for CBC. It'll help them continue to grow, and continue to be a leader in the Tri-Cities. So we'll continue to see what's next. But a lot of good things coming from CBC there. So good news. There are good news. But as always, there are things that aren't so good. So talking about public safety and legal watches here. There's 5 headlines that I'm going to try to get through here rather quickly, because a couple of them are very sad. First is a Benton County man. He was sentenced after firing at deputies. Jason J. Tanner, 56, Benton City, was sentenced to 11 years, 8 months in prison after firing a gun at 2 deputies. The bullet came within inches of their head. He was charged with first-degree assault. Prosecutors and attorneys requested a minimum sentence of 10 years, but Judge David Peterson added nearly 2 more years, citing how close it came to being a homicide. Why was he shooting at officers? Well, they had warrants for his arrest. He failed to appear on misdemeanor charges and a search warrant. He was seen outside and then ran back inside when deputies approached. Deputy tried for about an hour to get Tanner to surrender, threatened officers and the canine unit, claiming he had no weapon. Deputies attempted forced entry, and Tanner fired a 45 caliber handgun through the door. Deputies were crouched and likely saved their life, according to the court documents. What was called, Tanner eventually surrendered peacefully. Inside the RV, officers recovered a pistol, a 9mm handgun, and a modified shotgun. Tanner lost his right to own firearms in 2008. The two handguns were reported stolen. So this could have been very serious. Tanner's attorney said he was desperate and in a dark place. There also were some mental health concerns here. He wanted officers to shoot at him, suggesting a suicide by cop intention. So some of this was intentional, that he wanted this to happen to him so that they would shoot at him and they would take his life. Prosecutors did not pursue the maximum sentence, citing Tanner's lack of prior violent history. But if he had 3 guns, he hasn't been supposed to own one for 17 years. The consequences, I feel, are fitting, especially for shooting at an officer. Is never okay. Let's see. More gun violence, unfortunately, here in the Tri-Cities, which is always really sad. This time involving some teenagers. So this comes off of a botched gun deal. 2 teens shot, 2 arrested after botched gun deal in Kennewick parking lot. So Kennewick, a planned gun deal between teens turned violent Wednesday evening, April 9th, when a 17-year-old was shot after allegedly stealing cash during a meetup in a business parking lot off Columbia Center Boulevard. Noah R. Sanchez, 18, and Shaden K. Sullivan, 19, met up with 3 17-year-olds to buy a gun around 5:30 p.m. After handing over the money, the teen selling the gun allegedly fled in a black BMW, keeping both the firearm and the cash. Sanchez and Sullivan gave chase in a white Mercury, opening fire during a pursuit near Gage Boulevard roundabout, according to the Kennewick police. One of these teens in the BMW was shot and injured. The car stopped at a Richland fire station where firefighters rushed to help. At the same time, the Mercury reportedly rammed the BMW just outside the firehouse. The suspects fled the scene but were caught a short distance away on Keene Road by Richland officers. So Sanchez and Sullivan were booked in Benton County Jail on charges of first-degree assault, drive-by shooting. They also face illegal possession of firearms and also second-degree assault charges. Police recovered the 2 guns. One of them reported stolen between the 2 vehicles. The injured 17-year-old is reportedly in stable condition as of Thursday. Police say the teens in the BMW may have never intended to sell the weapon and are investigating theft and fraud charges. More arrests could follow. So there's more to come on this, but the teen violence goes back to a lot of the public safety laws that we have in our state, to where these teens can get away with this stuff, and they know there's not going to be consequences because they can be tried as juvies, and then as soon as they're 18, they'll have a clean record, or they'll get off easy or bailed out by a different organization, advocacy organizations, things like that. So it's really sad to see that these teens are committing these serious crimes because gun crimes are serious. They shouldn't be treated as children for serious gun crimes, knowing that full and well the consequences of what could happen, especially when you're shooting at someone, especially when you're shooting from a car, injuring other teens, injuring other people. You don't know who you could hit with that bullet, how erratic you could be. Probably not a good shot at that age, and what could happen definitely outweighs what did happen there. But what did happen is also very sad as well. But that's why, 17, stay off the streets, don't get involved in gun deals as it is always no good. So let's jump to another teen violent story. So gunfire during brawl at Richland's Claybell Park. What started as a one-on-one fight, fist fight, spiraled into a chaotic brawl involving over 20 people Thursday night, April 10th, at Claybell Park, located at 425 Broadmoor Street. So around 8:30 p.m., 2 people arranged to fight in the park. Quickly grew to more than 20. During the brawl, someone reportedly fired 3 shots into the air, escalating the situation. By the time the Richland Police Department and park rangers arrived, most of the crowd has scattered or driven off. 1 teen was injured, taken to the hospital. Police recovered a firearm and shell casings at the scene. Detectives are investigating, reviewing surveillance footage from the park. Increased patrols are being implemented in Richland Park to ensure safety. If you have any details or information, please contact the Richland Police Department as well. Okay, this one's actually crazy here because it's literally just crazy. Man attempted to hijack a Kennewick school bus, and this story blew my mind because little did I know when I looked into this story that this very well could have been my daughter's bus, and so this one hit extra close to home for me. The bus had just stopped to pick up its first student when Cuevas Corona boarded and sat directly behind the driver. The bus driver, sensing danger, exited the vehicle immediately. Then moved to the driver's seat and took the steering wheel though he never put the bus in gear. He waved for the driver, a parent, and the student to board, but instead they walked away with Corona following for several minutes. Police arrived and arrested Corona, who was now booked in Benton County Jail on suspicion of attempted vehicle theft. Authorities believe mental health may have played a role here. Kennewick Police Commander Isaac Merkel said that he hopes Corona receives treatment through the court system. From the KBD, the driver did a good job, and the group handled the situation calmly while walking away. No students were on board at the time of the incident. God bless. So it just goes to show, there's crazy people out there doing crazy things. This gentleman, incredibly young, 3, So what he was doing at 23 years old, at 8:10 in the morning, near this bus stop, trying to hijack a school bus, we don't know what intentions he had. We don't know what he's going to do next. Hopefully, we learn more details on what he had planned, and he has consequences for that, and he gets the help he needs. Because he's still very young, very bright future in front of him. Unfortunately, he will have this on his record now, and I really hope that he doesn't get to go anywhere near children for a very long time. So, again, parents, this is why it's so important to, even if your kids go to take the bus, it's still important to have adult supervision at the bus stop. Make sure that you're not leaving them there alone. The likelihood that that student would have gotten on the bus with that bus driver, just out of being scared, and that bus driver also being scared for that student, could have gone way up. And so, shout out to the bus driver, the adult, for handling that so well, calmly walking away, keeping the child calm, and just good job overall. Here we go. Javier J. Santana Jr., 48, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder with a firearm in the killing of Annabelle Arreola, a Tri-Cities man reportedly murdered over an $800 drug debt. Santana was sentenced to 15 years in prison in exchange for helping police locate Arreola's body near the Vernita Bridge, a key breakthrough in the case. So this happened March 12th, 2024. Annabelle Arreola, 39, described as a positive influence and family man. His confession, Santana's, he admitted to shooting Arreola 6 times, claimed a co-defendant, Kimberly Santos, also stabbed the victim. Salas reportedly took photos of the body to show a drug supplier. The body was found Columbia River near Vernita Bridge on the Benton County side. The body was allegedly dumped in a taped-up garbage can in the river. Santana led police to the location, which they had previously searched unsuccessfully. So, court proceedings. So, essentially, he led him to this body to get off a little bit lighter. 15 years. He's 48, so he'll be 63 when he's finished in prison, assuming nothing else happens and he doesn't get any further charges. His original sentence was looking at 16 to 24.5 years. Ultimately, because of him helping find the body and providing that key information on the other suspects, he only got 15. But still, it doesn't nearly feel like enough. So many lives are altered. He gets off easier because he led him to the body. Luckily, the family can now grieve and mourn and get closure on that chapter of their life and bury their loved one and move on. Judge Bronson Brown acknowledged that Santana's actions post-murder helped the investigation but emphasized the gravity of the crime. So Kimberly R. Salas, 47, she's charged with first-degree premeditated murder. Jason H.L. Bennett, 41, he's also charged with first-degree premeditated murder. And Bentley D. Harper, 38, rendering criminal assistance, evidence tampering, and making false statements. The brother of the victim and the niece spoke about the family's pain, mourning, and loss. They stole more than just one person. They stole the heart of our family, said the niece. The family vowed to keep Annabelle's memory alive and fight for justice. So this was a drug-related motive. He apparently owed Salas over $800. The execution was planned. Arreola was lured to Salas' home. Cell phone data and witness testimony placed him there. He was murdered and disposed of the next day. The prosecutor in this case said without the defendant's efforts, and the victim's remains might never have been found. Defense attorney Michael Vander Cease, almost immediately, Mr. Santana wanted to help the family achieve closure. A couple things here, just as we wrap up locally here. Let's see. As you may well know, the CBP One app was recently revoked, so local workers are in limbo with nearly 1 million immigrants losing legal status. These Tri-Cities residents now face deportation despite lawful entry. Legal experts warn that this policy change may face legal challenge, and it will. There always will be legal challenges. So let me just recap this. Thousands of immigrant workers in Eastern Washington are now in limbo after the Department of Homeland Security revoked legal protections for people who entered the U.S. using the CBP One app, a system once promoted as a lawful immigration pathway. So what happened? The CBP One, created under the Biden administration, allowed immigrants to schedule legal entry appointments at the southern border. Since this rollout, over 935,000 immigrants entered the U.S. legally through the app and were granted temporary parole and work permit. This week, the DHS began notifying immigrants that their protections have ended. Some received messages telling them to abandon the United States. In the Tri-Cities, many affected immigrants work in farming, construction, repair, and service industries. Immigration's attorney Hector Piorga, with offices in Kennewick and Wenatchee, says dozens of his clients, mostly Mexican nationals, are now at risk of deportation. Some still hold valid work permits. They're in asylum proceedings, have U.S. citizenship children, which could offer a legal foothold. A policy shift here. President Trump signed an executive order ending CBP One on his first day back in office. It's since been renamed CBP Home. Kiora warns that the sweeping rollback may face legal challenges. He also quoted, "They did what they were told, and now they're being punished." So legal advocates, of course, are urging immigrants not to panic and to consult attorneys about next steps. Anyone affected should contact local immigration legal support for help. I don't really have an opinion on this one way or another. I want to stay impartial on this one because I don't have any skin in the game here. I think that at the time, the CBP One app was set up to be a legal, lawful way to enter the country. Was it taken advantage of? Absolutely. Did it let in too many people without proper vetting? Absolutely it did. Are some of those people good? Yes. Are majority of them good? Yes. Do they help our economy? Yes. Do they make money here? Yes. Do they make our businesses run? Yes. Our fields, our agriculture, things like that run? Yes, they do. But also at the same time, law is law, so it's really hard to find a good position on this issue here. Lastly, here is Trump's tariffs slam Washington economy. So as you know, you've probably heard about the tariff war at this point, and you may not understand it. That's okay. I don't think a lot of people do. So let's see, kind of just an overview of what the hell is going on here. So President Trump announced sweeping new tariffs on April 2nd, followed by a pause for most countries on April 9th, but not China. China is now subject to 125 U.S. import tariff, up from the earlier 10% base and 34% increase. They retaliate with an 84% tariff on U.S. goods. Tariffs are based on the U.S. trade deficit with those countries. Estimated cost to American households are $52,000 per year, according to the Center for American Progress. So what is at risk here? Well, over $57 billion in exports, $62 billion in imports, number 9 exports nationally, and we're one of the most trade-dependent states in the country. Even though we have a really good economy here and we have all the things we really do need here in our state to sustain ourselves, the biggest issue here is that China wants to sell a bunch of crap very, really cheap and make a lot of money. And no one else wants to take it. And so I know ongoing negotiations is April 15th. Negotiations are ongoing. I don't believe any deal has been struck. The evidence of economic hardship is plain to see. These tariffs risk a recession, layoffs, and rising consumer prices. That's according to Governor Bob Ferguson. However, very interestingly enough, gas has actually gone down in the last week since this tariff war began, dropping nearly 40 cents, I believe, 30, 40 cents over the last week or so. So that's been really interesting to see, with other prices remaining pretty much the same across the board in stores, restaurants, things like that. So there's about $11.2 billion that come in from China. The biggest one being toys, games, sports equipment, electric machinery, and nuclear reactor parts. Some of this stuff, the technology side of it, I think is actually exempt from these tariffs. It won't actually be tariffed the same. And then also, of course, the export coming from Washington, oil seeds, soybeans, grains, 4.7 billion. Imagine if we just kept that here. Civilian aircraft and parts, 4.6 billion. Again, imagine if we just sent that around the United States and kept it home. Cereal grains, sorghum, wheat, corn, 760 million. Again, imagine if we just kept that here. You could feed a lot of people, feed a lot of hungry people. If we just kept all those exports in here and sold them throughout the United States, and funded America. Medical, veterinary, optic equipment, 320 million. Meat, mostly beef, 229 million. Again, there's not a shortage of food in the state. There's no reason why we can't sustain ourselves with the stuff that we're exporting. I mean, we import 11.2 billion. It's all material things of what we're importing. Games, toys, machinery, electric machinery, furniture, footwear, plastic materials, iron, steel articles, textile art, vacuum parts, vehicles, non-railway. That's what we're importing, but yet we're exporting the things we actually need: grains, oils, soybeans, aircraft parts, grains, medical, veterinary, optic equipment, meat, wood, fish, crustaceans, mollusks, electric machinery. Why wouldn't we just want to keep that, for our own economy, for the betterment of our own people, for the betterment of our own state? If you have the supply, if you meet the demand of supply, the costs go down. So why would you need to export when you could just keep it here? That's my question here. It's a very simple question to be asking. Why not just feed our own economy, feed ourselves, versus feeding China? And that's the part I don't understand, nor will I probably ever understand that part of it whatsoever. So something to keep in mind there. Our economy is particularly vulnerable due to heavy reliance on China for both imports and exports. But I did just tell you that everything that we import is all just material things. And we don't need to export to China all these necessities. Why not just keep them here in the state or export them across the United States? Wouldn't that make more sense? So that's what I'll leave you there. These tariffs allegedly threaten local industries such as agricultural, aerospace, and manufacturing, but Boeing sells a lot to the military. They can sell to other states, they can sell to other industries, they can keep it here in the United States, sell to Canada, sell to Mexico, sell to places where, there's less tariffs. Very easy to rework those contracts. Some of them, maybe not so much, but for the smaller industries, you can definitely rework those contracts. And it wouldn't hurt to keep some of these things here. The wood, especially trying to build housing, $156 million in wood. Yeah, keep that home. Machinery, medical equipment, keep that home. Use it here, sell it here. These rising costs can impact the things from toys, medical equipment, and soybeans, even though that's not impacted in part of our economy here. So it's really interesting that the article I read here in the Tri-City Herald is explaining that while also pointing out that the things that are our top import, these top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, are the 10 things most affected. And the 10 things we most export are actual our necessity. So it's just really interesting here to kind of think about, ask these questions and think about this and get your thoughts going on this. So yeah. So I think that's it. So just things to think about. Of course, we're also coming up on the budget. The budget should be coming here hopefully end of this week. It's the end of the legislative session. So we will see kind of what comes next for the Washington State budget as well. And I'll definitely keep you guys more informed on that over on the big show, Evergreen Report. We have a very exciting episode coming up this week over there that I'll tease out right now. Preparing a full on episode just to talk about House Bill 1296 and Senate Bill 5181, which, quote unquote, gut parental rights. But I think there's a lot of things that we all need to talk about. I think there's some things that we need to pump the brakes on, and we need to talk about a little bit more in depth, and understand a little bit deeper. And then also coming up on Evergreen Report 13, we're also going to be talking about property taxes, House Bill 1217, Senate Bill 5798, property taxes, and then also doing a deep dive into what the heck are all these emergency clauses and what do they mean? Because I feel like that's very, very important to understand when are emergency clauses used and when they're not and what they mean. I'm also talking about the benefit, Senate Bill 5041 on the upcoming episode as well as House Bill 1472, which I'm really trying to find some local people on to talk about the closure of the Yakima Valley School and the Rainier School. I've reached out to the friends of the two school Facebook groups and a bunch of people in those groups to try to get comment on this bill. 31 also as well, Preserving Public Health Authority on Communicable Diseases, I think is really important to talk about. And of course, House Bill 2076, creating the Washington Doge, WADOGE, sponsored by Jim Walsh there. And then of course, Senate Bill 5801, which is a transportation bill as well. So lots of really great things coming up in the Evergreen Report. Over on the big show. So stay tuned. Lots of really good stuff. Of course, more good stuff coming out here in the Tri-Cities. Every day it feels like there's more crazy headlines that I am having a hard time believing every single day. So with that, engage in your community. If you're in Finley, it closes on April 22nd. If you have any tips into the child sex trafficking cases, anything like that, if you ever know, see something, say something, call your local police department, call the emergency line, call the tip lines, make a report. Listener questions. Should Benton County courts restore online access with drug controls? I think yes. I think those are really good things to do. I think it helps a lot of people. Of course, there's always going to be those bad apples out there, but if you can enhance the controls, enhance the firewalls, make them more strict, vetting things like that, I'm not allowed screen sharing, things like that. I think you can definitely circumvent this process. Do 4-day school weeks benefit or harm education outcomes? Well, I don't know because I've never seen one. I've never been a part of one. I think there's benefits. There's a benefit and a negative to every side of the story. There's always a heads and there's always a tails to see kind of what happens next. So it will be interesting to see what happens next. I think I would invite you, the listener who sent this question in, to go and look at case studies from around the state, see what those case studies have revealed, whether test scores have gone up, students are happier, parents are happier, teachers are happier, better retention, better pay, better things like that, if they're actually saving money and what's going on in those districts. There's 18 case studies in the state, so plenty of ways to go and look for more. And then, of course, last question here, should social media be taxed to support mental health resources? I mean, I think we're going after the wrong thing here. I think we have the money, we have the revenue, we have the resources to help a lot of people. And I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to fund mental health. But again, we already have the money. Let's get rid of the things we don't need to be able to fund the things we do need, especially for our youth. Mental health and behavioral health, I think, are two really big issues here in the Tri-Cities, especially, and in Washington State that really need some time and attention. With that, that is it for this week's Evergreen Local Tri-Cities edition, or sixth episode. So we're on the way to 10 local reports here. So really cool, really exciting things. Whether it's courtroom chaos or capital gains, your awareness makes a difference. Stay safe, stay informed, and most importantly, stay evergreen.